you want to find out how to protect yourself from evil eye, voodoo, dark magic, and all forms of unseen and unknown evil, then this video is exactly for you. And the method is in Surat Al-Falaq, which is surah number 113 in the order of the Qur'an. And before we get into that, a cool thing that I noticed is that if you add 1 + 1 + 3, you get the number 5, right? And the number 5 is the number for protection in Islamic theology. There's 5 daily prayers, 5 fingers making dua, and 5 pillars of Islam. But not only that, it also mentions 5 different harms. One of them being darkness, another being magic, and then you have envy, the blower in knots, and created evil, right? And it's also revealed alongside Surat Al-Nas, one of the 2 protectors of the entire Qur'an. Surat Al-Nas and Surat Al-Falaq paired together are known as the 2 protectors. And this is the bridge between Surat Al-Ikhlas and Surat Al-Nas, right? Protection from all forms of evil and negative energy lie within this surah. Surat Al-Nas discusses personal and internal energy, whispers of the shaitan, recurring thoughts and emotions inflicted by jinn and mankind but affect you internally, right? But Surat Al-Falaq focuses on external energies, and this includes creation, darkness, and envy, things that come from external sources. And they also affect you externally, which include loss of provision, lack of activity, misaligned action. Surat Al-Nas and Surat Al-Falaq also protect you from forces you don't recognize and can't detect, and ones that I can't even put into words. But even though you can't comprehend them, and you probably never will, you will be protected by them simply by reciting these surahs and understanding what you're reciting. So the Prophet recited both of these surahs together daily as a shield for his energy, because both of them shift your perspective to what you need protection from and who you align with in order to receive this protection. And they're essentially the cornerstone of Islamic spiritual healing. And it came down, Surat Al-Falaq and Surat Al-Nas both came down during a time where the Prophet was being physically, emotionally, and spiritually attacked, including attacks consisting of dark magic. And the surah doesn't neglect the fear of these things, or like even the actual presence. Like, it admits that they're there, but it acknowledges them in order to demonstrate why and how to seek protection through them. And without this fear, you wouldn't be seeking protection in the first place, right? But instead of dwelling in this fear, you're being called to surrender to what you fear and let the one who controls all of it protect you from it. And this is one of the earliest models of psychological empowerment through surrender, right? The word falaq literally means daybreaker, or the one who pierces through darkness. For example, a star piercing through the night sky, or the sun at dawn, right? This is a representation that even the darkest nights do not last. And surely light and relief always splits through. And this is also a reminder that darkness cannot exist when light is present. You're afraid that the darkness has been following you, so you turn to the light, which cuts right through it. The first word in the surah is ghul, okay? Ghul is commanding oneself to say. As I explained in the Surat Al-Nas tafsir that you can find on my page, this is bringing your awareness to what you're saying. It's a command from the soul to the psyche, and essentially takes you from the one just saying it to embodying the state of what you're about to say. The next word is a'udhu, right? It's the same exact beginning of Surat Al-Nas, Qul a'udhu. And a'udhu is seeking refuge within, right? It's clinging tightly to, it's seeking safety, but not passively, with like urgency and desperation. You're invoking yourself to affirm that you're in need of safety in what you say after this word. And you say birabbi after a'udhu, right? So birabbi also affirms that you're calling out to your Rabb. This is the same beginning of Surat Al-Nas, and I go way deeper in the Surat Al-Nas tafsir, but for the sake of this tafsir, birabbi is affirming that you're calling out to your Rabb, your Lord who you're devoted to, right? And then you say birabbil falaq, and this is where we see the word falaq, which is the name of the surah. And the root for falaq is falaqa. And the root meaning means to split open, to tear apart, to cause a break in which something comes out, right? And normally it's used to describe a seed breaking through, light breaking the night sky, or a stone splitting from pressure. And it's not just breaking, it's a rupture and release. So something comes out of it, right? When Allah refers to himself as Rabb al-Falaq, he's confirming that he is the master that tears swiftly through the darkness. And he commands the light that nothing can resist submitting to. Falaq is a cosmic act of ripping through something. And in this context, it's ripping through whatever evil or harm tries to befall you. And on an internal level, this represents your mental sun, right? After a mental or spiritual night. And it's a reminder that light is always scheduled to arrive, even if you don't see it yet. Just like the middle of the night, you don't see the sun, right? But you know that the sun is eventually coming and is going to be light outside. Rabb al-Falaq not only represents the light that's scheduled to arrive, but it also represents the one who brings the light and the one that brings order to chaos. And unlike Surat Al-Nas, you're seeking protection in this one attribute of Allah. In Surat Al-Nas, you go over Rabb al-Nas, Malik al-Nas, and Ilahi al-Nas. But this is the only, the only invocation of Allah in this entire surah. The next 5 verses are literally mentioning the evils in which you seek refuge in the attribute of Rabb al-Falaq. And the next ayah in the surah is Min Sharri Ma Khalaq, which we already know Sharri represents evil or harm, seen or unseen. It's just a general evil, right? And the word preceding it represents what kind of evil exactly we're talking about. Sharri can be pain, chaos, corruption, right? But then it's followed up by the word khalaq, right? Which has the root kha, la, and qa. And khalaq, this root, it means to create. And in this form, it's in the form of the past tense. So its meaning is what has already been created. This ayah includes all evil from creation, not just jinn or mankind, but from insects, natural forces, animals, diseases, unseen realms, you name it, right? It literally includes evil from everything that which has been created, whatever exists that may harm. And this includes things that currently exist and have existed in the past. So it's not just limited to evil that's happening in this present moment. It could be people that you encountered, it could be events, and this is recognizing that some creation carries trial, darkness, and danger. And essentially, you're weak in protecting yourself without Allah. This redirects your fear from all of the shar that exists and turns it towards Allah, right? You're not giving power to any of these things over Allah, and in turn, you're empowering yourself. This is a moment of surrender, and you're asking Allah to keep your soul in His mercy and in the protection from all harm that has been created. Allah is telling us what to seek refuge in and who to seek refuge in, just like in Surah Al-Nas. And it's not for a specific kind of harm. It's for the entire dark side of existence. All of creation has its beauty and its dark side. And only Allah can distinguish and deflect the parts that you're not able to deal with. You're not paranoid for feeling like something's afflicting you. This is literally confirming that your intuition is not wrong. So the protection isn't just physical, it's energetic, spiritual, and vibrational. As a lesson we can learn from this single ayah, we shouldn't be trying to identify the source of harm. We should only shield up so it can never reach us. And that takes us into the next ayah, in which mentions another form of evil, right? The ayah is Min Sharri Ghasiqin Iza Waqab. And we already know what Min Sharri means, from the evil, right? So we're going to focus on Ghasiqin Iza Waqab. And let's start with the word Ghasiqin. Ghasiqin has a root of Gha, Sin, Qa. And this essentially means to become intensely dark, described by like an oozing or flowing, not like light, but like imagine a cup of water and you pour like a dark liquid in it and it takes it over, right? The form that's being used is used to describe the deepest and darkest part of the night. And this is a time where everything is still and danger comes out, essentially, right? Al-Ghasiq doesn't point towards the darkness itself, but it's pointing towards the things that come out during the darkness, right? And this isn't limited to anything specific. And since it's in the dark, you won't have full knowledge of it, right? Just like when you're in a dark room. Even if it's your own bedroom and you know exactly where everything is, even if there are no lights on, you won't know how to navigate. You can like try and feel your way around and try to move slowly, but even then you can still trip on something, right? And we go right into the next phrase, which is wasilun idha wagab. And wagab has the root of waw, qab. And this essentially means to penetrate or make a hole and slip through, right? And this is implying that all evil or harm doesn't just fall upon you. It slips through cracks, enters your bones, and seeps through barriers, right? Almost in like a secretive, like non-detectable, stealthy kind of way, right? And it's not when the evil or harm is around, but it's when it literally enters you. When you feel despair, paranoia, or a heavy heart, that right there is waqab. And when the darkness pierces your reality, it essentially distorts it. Waqab is interpreted as a symbol of sudden evil descending, just like spiritual ambush. And just as the night comes slowly and then fully takes over, evil, like I said, can be subtle, but then overwhelming. And Sufis and scholars connect waqab with the subconscious mind, right? Jinn activity, which intensifies after Maghrib, and even dark thoughts, depressive energies, whispers, and trauma reliving itself, right? Because it's not necessarily, I don't want to say not detectable, it's very stealthy. It comes subtle, and then it takes over. And waqab is the threshold or moment when the hidden becomes active, right? It's not when it's creeping up on you, it's when it activates. That's what's being described in this ayah. Which takes us to the next ayah, right? You see min sharri again, right? But min sharri what? Min sharri nafasati fil uqad. And this ayah essentially means from the evil of the woman who blow in knots. And the root of nafathati is na-fa-tha. And the root meaning essentially means to blow lightly. And it's different from nafakh, right? Nafakh is another word in Arabic which means to blow hard. Like you say nafakh, like a balloon, right? You blow hard into a balloon and you blow it up. But nafath is subtle and ritualistic and repetitive. In this form, nafathat is in the plural feminine form. So it means those women who repeatedly blow with intent. It's not a random blowing, but a targeted spiritual action. Basically, Allah is describing witches, sorcerers, and female practitioners, right? And that sounds crazy because it's acknowledging that all of these things do exist. And a lot of Muslims don't really talk about it, right? There are people that are literally spiritually targeting you, right? And I don't want to get targeted after this video, but you could say that some people in power, they don't need to force you to do anything. They just attack you spiritually. And there are these things which are a means of doing that, right? So they say men are more logical and we're more equipped to handle like the physical world, right? And this is why it's in the plural feminine form, right? Women are more emotion-based, so they're able to tap in with intuition and bypass logic. And that essentially means that they're a lot more tapped into the emotion side of things, right? They're able to deal with things that bypass your logic and target you in unseen realms. So think about it like this, right? They're blowing into the knots, right? The knot is a binding target. I'm going to get into it in a second. The blow activates the curse, and the intention of the one doing it is what sets the aim. The form doesn't also refer to women, right? It can also refer to those in groups, right, that are usually prone to secrecy and subtlety, right? but I'll let you figure that one out on your own. So the next word is fi, right? Which means in, and not just in, it means wrapped inside of, right? The internal part of. Al-uqad. Al-uqad essentially means the knots, right? And the root is aqada. And the root meanings are to tie, to bound, to secure, to fasten. It's used in tying ropes, bonding contracts, and psychological blocks. And any and every emotional and traumatic entanglement within can be described by this word or by this root. And it's not just a physical knot, right? It's a physical knot that's within. It's any point of entanglement or restriction or held energy inside of you. And it shows up in the Qur'an in other instances, the word uqad, right? Referring to blockages, bindings, and barriers. But in this surah, the knots are referring to black magic, rituals that are bound and focused on a target. The blowers are tying someone's fate, blocking someone's path, disrupting marriages, causing sickness, anxiety, illness, and misfortune, right? These are all considered knots within somebody that these blowers of the knots, or blowers into the knots, are inflicting onto somebody else. This isn't just a metaphor, it's literally just classical magic, right? Each and every one of these breaths activates an intention sealed into one of these knots. And if you feel blocked, tightness in your chest, or the inability to move from trauma or an unfortunate event, these are all internal knots, right? You can cause these knots by yourself, but they can also be tied for you. Someone can set the intention, creating these knots within you. Subconsciously, consciously, on purpose, not on purpose, right? And modern psychology even mentions this a good amount, right? So modern psychology is literally catching up to the Qur'an, which was revealed 1400 years ago. I'm sure you heard that a lot, so I'm just going to get into it, right? Knots are literally psychological complexes, right? And these are things that you believe about yourself that shape your life, a scar or word that hurt you, or even karmic entanglement with someone who should have exited your life a long time ago, right? This isn't targeted towards your health. This is a target towards your mind, soul, destiny, literally using soul knots, right? And this is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us to recite the two protectors in the morning and the night. These are time where earth exits darkness and enters darkness, right? The two transitions within the day, both in and out of darkness. And uqad is tied in the unseen, right? And this ties back to the previous ayah, which mentions ghasilan. They essentially go hand in hand. This is the time where you're the most vulnerable towards these attacks. During the transitions to the dark, where you don't really think about it, right? Because the darkness subtly creeps up on you and then takes over, like I said. So during that time where it's subtly creeping up on you, that is where you should be the most cautious, right? And these are all things that Muslims don't really talk about, but recite literally every single day. Every day, people say the words that which invokes the Lord of Daybreak, right? The one that pierces through all of this darkness, but with no intention and without embodying the state consciously, right? So if you don't do that, if you don't recite these words consciously, then these words are just futile, right? But by reciting these words with full presence, we're breaking the knot, we're cutting the cord, and we're releasing imprisoned energy, right? This is realigning your qadr, which is destiny, back to your fitrah, which essentially is your highest or most natural path. Because humans, as we know, are beings capable of deviating from their true nature, right? The next ayah is the final ayah. We went through قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ مِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ مِنْ شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, right? The last ayah is مِنْ شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ, and from the evil of the envier when he envies. The first thing that we notice is envy from other people is mentioned as a root of evil. And the second thing that we notice is that there are people who are prone to envy. people that are envious essentially make that their entire personality. It's literally like a disease. You can't be envious without being an envious person, right? So just like every other ayah, this ayah begins with min sharri. And as we know, this is literally seeking protection from an evil. So by now you should know exactly what min sharri means, right? We went over in Surat Al-Nas, and now it shows up 4 times in Surat Al-Falaq. And the final threat in the surah is revealed as one who envies. And this is essentially putting them on the same level as all the other evils that have been declared inside of the surah, which include things in the darkness of the night, and witches and sorcerers, right? And the crazy part is, this isn't just a monster or a demon that you're seeking protection from. It's literally just a regular person who has envy in their heart, right? A heart disease that's so sickening and dark that it literally becomes shar, right? So let's break down the words, right? The first word is hasidin. We have min sharri hasidin. And the root for this is hasada. And the root meaning isn't just jealousy, it's a destructive envy, right? It's not just wishing that you had what someone else had, it's literally wishing that they didn't have it at all. And like I said before, the noun implies that this is someone whose entire personality has been enveloped by this envious energy, right? You have hasidin, but then the next phrase is ida hasad, right? And this essentially is a trigger, right? This implies that envy isn't destructive unless it's activated, because ida means when, right? It's taking the noun and putting it into a form which it's actively doing something. And then you have the next word, right, which is hasad, right? Hasad is to envy. So you have hasidin, the envier, ida, when they, hasad, envy, right? And envy really can exist in the heart without being activated, but we're being warned from when it is activated, right? You can obviously feel it inside of you. It's something that you can repent from too. But this ayah is also recognizing that this is also a natural state of a person, right? Like, it happens. But it's up to you whether or not you act upon it, or just like the things in Surat Al-Nas, right? You can let it pass, right? And essentially, if you fester in it, that's when it becomes a weapon. Ida signifies the moment of eruption where envy becomes action. And this essentially is hasad, which also has the same root as hasidin. And it's almost like waswasa from Surat Al-Nas, like I said. You can let it rest upon your heart and eventually let it in, or you can seek protection from it with the surah, with Surat Al-Nas, and allow it to pass. So we do have the choice in our hands, and as you know, we all have free will. So it literally comes down to one of the choices that Allah has given us, right? The entire Qur'an literally tells us that we're beings with free will, and people always try and debate whether or not we actually have free will or not, but Allah is literally giving you like the choices that are in your hands. And as we break down more chapters and verses of the Qur'an, we're going to find out exactly what these choices that we have are, and which one takes us on the higher path and which one takes us on the lower path. But notice how the same root is repeated twice, hasidin ida hasad. And Allah could have really just left it at hasidin, right? The one who envies. But just like every other single detail of the Qur'an, it's repeated for a reason, right? And especially in today's society where envy isn't rebuked, it's borderline normalized, right? In all facets and all sides of society, right? From the poor envying the rich, and the rich envying each other, sometimes even the rich envying the poor, right? The intensification is to essentially signify that this isn't theoretical, right? It's literally something that happens and that you should be aware of. And that you're most vulnerable at the very moment someone decides to act upon their envy, right? Envy was the first sin that occurred in Jannah. Iblis refused to bow to Adam. And this essentially was hasad, right? He couldn't stand the rise of another being. And this jealousy literally resulted in the rebellion, which resulted in him getting casted down pretty much, right? A jinn became a devil because of hasad. You can also see hasad in the first murder on earth, right? Where Qabil, or Cain, as most people know, killed his brother Habil, which is Abel, right? And this was also out of envy because Habil's acceptance by God was what caused it, right? So this caused Qabil to have envy in his own brother, right? It literally made brother kill brother. If that can happen, right? Think about it in today's world, right? Hasad literally could be a friend who smiles at you but resents your blessings, a relative who competes silently, someone stalking your success online and just sending bad energy in silence, right? This all affects you. But the crazy part is, even you wishing someone would fail just so you feel better is included in hasad, right? And this applies to literally everyone, right? Because if a brother can envy another brother, then someone can envy anyone else because your brother is literally the closest person to you. And according to Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet, peace be upon him, confirmed that evil eye is real, right? And just a single glance filled with envy can cause harm, sabotage, and ruin relationships. Envy or hasad isn't just an emotion, it's literally a spiritual virus, right? It's literally the most widespread and common out of all the evils, right? Just like Surat Al-Nas, it started pretty specific and it broadened to jinn and mankind. This started off with very specific evils and then broadened all the way until the end of the surah. And this essentially is telling you that like magic is rare, right? The jinn might be able to affect you. The night, it eventually passes, but envy, you might literally be surrounded by it every single day, and you might not be bringing any type of awareness to it, right? At least one moment of envy happens every single day, right? And this is why the final external factor that we're seeking protection from is a human with a sick heart and wicked eye. This surah doesn't end with mentions of magic or witches. It ends with envy because envy fuels all of the rest, right? So Allah ends with this, right? Seek my protection from the one who looks at you like I should have blessed them instead, right? He's literally telling you that there are people that look at your blessings and think that you don't deserve them and they deserve them more than you, even though Allah has allowed it to happen. That's where the sickness really comes in. So this surah begins with calling out and instructing your soul to seek the state of protection by invoking the attribute of Allah that literally pierces through darkness. It mentions to seek the protection from the evil of general creation, cosmic conditions, targeted rituals, and finally, the raw hatred of the human heart. And you don't just need protection from bullets and knives, you literally need protections from whispers, gazes, words, silence, timing, energy, you name it, right? Things that you can't really see or detect if you don't have the awareness that these things are going on. But just when you thought it couldn't get any deeper, you realize that you yourself, as a creation, right, are capable of being on the other side of the one seeking for protection. You're able to cause and inflict and bring about all of the evils that have been mentioned in the surah just as much as you're able to seek protection from them. So as much as the surah is meant to be a shield, it's also another self-diagnosis, just like Surat Al-Nas, to bring awareness to all the things that go in with inside. And you don't just ask for protection from the outside, you're literally also asking for purification from within. Because the darkness, the envy, and the spells not only can be against you, but they literally might be within you. So when you ask Allah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, you're not just asking for a wall around you, you're literally asking for light to break from within you. And you're asking for protection from evils and components that are within you that's settled within your dark side, right? And just like Surat Al-Nas, Surat Al-Falaq is a mirror, a sword, and a dawn all at the same time. And it makes you realize that sometimes the evil you fear the most is the evil you've been quietly feeding within. So don't only seek refuge, right? Take responsibility. Because both Surat Al-Nas and Surat Al-Falaq are the greatest calls to accountability in the Qur'an that Allah leaves you with before essentially letting you go about your way. And you aren't just reciting a dua, you're literally choosing which side of the light you stand on. So like I said, Allah gives you the choices, but the choice is in your hands.